Germany to send 14 of its own Leopard 2 tanks initially. Berlin agrees to let allies send Ukraine their Leopards. US expected to follow suit with heavy Abrams tanks. Russia calls it an extremely dangerous decision. Berlin, Jan 25, Reuters. Germany said on Wednesday it would supply its Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine, overcoming misgivings about sending heavy weaponry that Kyiv sees as crucial to defeat Russia's invasion, but Moscow casts as a dangerous provocation. Pressure has been building for weeks on German Chancellor Olaf Scholz's government to send the tanks and allow NATO allies to do the same before expected spring offensives by both sides. Scholz's government had stalled, wary of moves that could prompt Russia to escalate the war or draw NATO into becoming a party to the conflict. Germany's decision paves the way for other countries such as Poland, Spain, Finland, the Netherlands and Norway to supply some of their Leopard tanks to Ukraine, going some way towards delivering the hundreds of tanks that Ukraine says it needs. Germany will always be at the forefront when it comes to supporting Ukraine, Scholz told German parliament to applause, because there really is a war in Europe. Not far from here in Berlin it is taking place against a big country like Ukraine. Germany must do everything possible, but at the same time we must prevent the war from escalating into a war between Russia and NATO, he said. Hoping to allay concerns about sending the weapons, Scholz asked Germans to trust his government to ensure there was no increased risk to their country and to coordinate steps with allies. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky thanked Scholz for Germany's important and timely decisions, saying they were a green light for partners to supply similar weapons. Germany aims to quickly establish 2 battalions with Leopard 2 tanks for Ukraine and initially provide 14 Leopard 2 tanks from its own inventory. A battalion normally comprises 3 or 4 companies with around 14 tanks each. Poland has also pledged 14 tanks, and Britain has promised 14 of its own Challengers. Germany's tanks would probably be ready in 3-4 months, Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said. Training of Ukrainian troops in Germany will begin soon, and Germany will also provide logistics and ammunition. Germany said it would also issue the appropriate transfer permits to partner countries that want to deliver Leopard 2 tanks quickly from their own stocks. Russia criticizes Germany's decision. Russia has portrayed deliveries of heavy weapons to Ukraine as proof that the West is escalating the war. The Russian embassy to Berlin accused Germany of making an extremely dangerous decision and abandoning its historical responsibility to Russia arising from Nazi crimes in World War II. The embassy said the tank deliveries would escalate the conflict to a new level and lead to permanent escalation. The Leopards, used by armies across Europe, are widely seen as the best option for Ukraine as they are available in large numbers and relatively easy to deploy and maintain. Washington may also drop its opposition to sending perhaps dozens of its M1 Abrams tanks to Kyiv. The Abrams is seen as less suitable for Ukraine due to its heavy fuel consumption and greater maintenance needs, but such a move could ease German concerns about presenting a united front among Ukraine's allies. Asked whether France would send Leclerc tanks, a French government official said there was no taboo on such tanks, but France was keen to be efficient, and was studying the option independently of what Berlin and Washington were doing. Britain and Poland welcomed Germany's decision, which Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki described as a big step towards stopping Russia. A German government spokesperson said the decision to supply the tanks follows our well-known line of supporting Ukraine to the best of our ability. German officials had reportedly been insisting they would only agree to the transfer of Leopard 2s to Ukraine if the US also sent M1 Abrams. If the Germans continue to say we will only send or release Leopards on the conditions that Americans send Abrams, we should send Abrams, Democratic Senator Chris Coons, a Biden ally, told Politico on Tuesday. Britain has already said it will send Challenger 2 tanks to Ukraine. Ukraine is still unlikely to get the 300 modern main battle tanks it says it needs to win the war. But if half a dozen Western nations each provide 14 tanks, then that would bring the total to nearly 100, which could make a difference. Western tanks, including the UK's Challenger 2, Germany's Leopard 2 and the US-made Abrams, are all seen as superior to their Soviet-era counterparts, like the ubiquitous T-72. They will provide Ukrainian crews with more protection, speed and accuracy. But Western modern main battle tanks are not a wonder weapon or game changer on their own. It's also what's being supplied alongside them. In recent weeks, There's been a step change in heavy weapons being supplied by the West, including hundreds more armored vehicles, artillery systems, and ammunition. Combined together, they are the kind of military hardware needed to punch through Russian lines and to retake territory. If Ukrainian troops can be trained and the weapons delivered in time, they could form key elements of any spring offensive. A missing element for offensive operations is still air power. Ukraine has been asking for the West to provide modern fighter jets since the war began. So far, none has been delivered. Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann of the Liberal FDP party, who chairs the Defense Committee of the German Parliament, had previously described reports that Germany had approved the tanks as a relief to the battered and brave Ukrainian people. The decision was tough, it took far too long, but in the end it was unavoidable, she said. Allied nations had become frustrated at what they perceived as German reluctance to send the armored vehicles in recent days. The Ukrainian president's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, on Tuesday called on Western countries to give Kyiv hundreds of tanks to form a crushing fist against Russia. Tanks are one of the components for Ukraine to return to its 1991 borders, he wrote on Telegram. Anatoly Antonov, the Russian ambassador to Washington, wrote on Telegram, "If the United States decides to supply tanks, then justifying such a step with arguments about defensive weapons will definitely not work. This would be another blatant provocation against the Russian Federation."